Let's talk about some new Eldar leaks today then. The Avatar of Cain seems to be getting a massive buff, scatter lasers and shuriken cannons are getting upgunned, and it seems that just about every single aspect warrior class are getting more interesting. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking about some more Eldar leaks and rumours, and I thought we'd take a video to look over the last few days worth of Eldar Advent Calendar content, the one that came out of that Eldari Discord server and is reportedly based on a playtester's copy of the Codex. These have perhaps received a little bit more in the way of official confirmation since I last made the video. I did think that these leaks sounded really quite reliable and genuine, but since I last made a video rounding up a few of the rumours, that Eldritch Omens box has come out, and it seems that the source who gave these leaks correctly predicted the exact gear of the Shroud Runner jet bikes that the Eldar got, as well as the contents of the Eldritch Omens box in general. As that wasn't general knowledge yet, knowing that the Shroud Runners came with scatter lasers and Ranger long rifles showed that at least correctly predicted some things and maybe makes the rest of the leak a lot more reliable to follow. Of course, as this was a playtest copy, there might be minor changes since this, but I suspect that the broad thrust of it is right. In any case, let's take a look at some of the other rumours. We'll start out with a bunch of Eldar gun changes, then talk through some aspect warriors, then look at the Avatar of Cain and a few other bits. First up, following the trend with just about every 9th edition codex, it seems that Games Workshop have taken a good look at each bit of war gear and generally made it a little bit better at doing its given job. One of the most expected changes was to the Bright Lance, unsurprisingly the exact same as the Drukhari Dark Lance, Strength 8, AP-4 and D3+3 damage. Apparently though the Pulse Laser won't be left behind by that, that's now Strength 9 and D3+3 damage too, and the Fire Prisms Lance mode also gets the D3+3 damage upgrade. Seems pretty solid to be honest. D3+3 does seem to be the profile of the scariest anti-tank weapons around. For Shuriken Cannons the change is interesting, apparently they're going to be becoming AP-2 and damage 2. We saw in a previous rumour that the standard Shuriken catapults will be AP-1 and get an extra 2 AP on 6s, so this one's looking like a pretty general purpose all-rounder weapon now. On the face of it, it seems very similar to the current profile of the Star Cannon, just a little bit less range and AP. I think the points are going to be really important on this one as an all-rounder. If they do charge a bit too much for a premium of it, then it's just usually not going to get taken when there's other options available. Say for example Space Marine Heavy Bolters and Dark Eldar Splinter Cannons perhaps aren't the first weapons that you go to if you have the choice of other options. Next up, the slightly underwhelming Scatter Laser at the moment will be gaining a massive boost, going up to 6 shots at Strength 6, AP 0 and Damage 1. With AP 0 it's not going to be cared about too much by most heavily armoured threats. It's not really general purpose, but this should absolutely murder hordes, and won't be too bad against things that are toughness 5 with a poor save either. Kind of makes me wonder if the Imperial Guard multi-laser will see a similar shot increase. Again, that's certainly a gun that needs a lot of help with how 9th edition's progressed with lots more wounds. Kind of interesting that the Shuriken Cannon and Scatter Laser are now looking so different. The Shuriken's a lot more anti-elite, where the Scatter Laser is much more anti-horde now. Finally, the Night Spinner, along with changes to the Death Spinners that we'll see later, now seems to be going to AP-2, though there won't be any boost to its AP on 6s anymore. Again, that certainly sounds like one to watch. Night Spinners really aren't too bad as Eldar units go at the moment, so making their guns massively more reliable and deadly seems like a recipe for them being very strong indeed. If their damage output is even halfway decent, then having the advantage of ignoring line of sight is really going to be a massive win for these. Moving on to the big guns, and here's a collection of rumours for the Aspect Warriors. In general, they really don't seem to see all that much play in Craftworld lists at the moment, maybe only things like Shining Spears and Dark Reapers really bucking the trend with their massive damage output. First up, across the board, the Aspect Warriors are rumoured to be getting a 5+ invul save and +1 attack each. The +1 attack certainly seems very believable indeed. That's the same as the Drukhari Kabbalite Warriors got, so it seems very plausible that the Aspects will get that too. Certainly going to make things like the Striking Scorpions and Howling Banshees a lot more effective. The 5+ invul is quite a nice touch as well. I'm going to imagine that's going to represent them dodging and diving and avoiding enemy fire and attacks, and it might help a little bit with the problem that Aspect Warriors often have, being very elite and high damage dealing troops, but often at risk of dying very quickly if they're targeted by just about anything. It wouldn't stop a squad dying from concentrated firepower, but might make them a little bit harder to chew through and not quite as effortless to remove. Going on to the actual Aspect Warriors, and along with the Night Spinners, the new rules for their monofilament type weapons seem to be AP-2, so Death Spinners look like they'll be going to that, but no 6s to get extra AP as before. The person who leaked these also seems to make some sort of allusion to a teleport after shooting ability, That might well be a squad upgrade, stratagem, or datasheet ability. That certainly seems to be something that Warp Spiders have had quite a bit throughout 40k, a bit of jump shoot jump shenanigans. For Swooping Hawks, their last blaster profile has been kind of left behind by 40k's creep. 4 shots at strength 3 AP 0 just really don't do that much these days. Supposedly last blasters are going to be going to strength 4 and auto wound on 6s to hit. If they're still AP 0, they're still going to struggle against anything with high armor saves, but at least that should give them a bit more reliable damage output against medium armor save things. There might also be a semi-reasonable choice for dealing damage to things like tough monsters with bad saves, maybe things like Chaos Greater Demons perhaps. Next up we have perhaps the most controversial and interesting change on the list. According to this leak, Dire Avengers are becoming an elite's choice and not a troops anymore. Whenever a unit moves on from the troop slot, it is kind of annoying for collectors of that unit. Just because of the way the detachments work at the moment, you're usually going to want at least some troops in each army, and it very rarely happens that a unit moves from the troop slot to a different slot and then still remains just as relevant within the army. That would leave the army with just Guardians, Storm Guardians and Rangers, though as we'll be talking about in a second, they are also rumoured to be moving on. In any case, it isn't really all bad news for the Dire Avengers. Apparently their shuriken shots will be getting 3 attacks and go to AP -2, and able to Blade Storm double shoot for a stratagem, and that could make them some seriously decent damage dealers with a bit of investment. The Exarch's Shimmer Shield upgrade usually gives the squad a 5+ invul save. Apparently that will be going to a 4+ to fit in with the 5+ invul save that all Aspect Warriors get now, and apparently they'll still have a way to get objectives secured via Exarch powers, though it remains to be seen how many hoops you have to jump through to get that. Still though, possibly not the best news for the boys in blue. Howling Banshees and Striking Scorpions, both are units that I think could do with a melee buff, and it does seem that they're potentially getting one. Howling Banshee's Banshee masks are going to be able to make a unit fight last now, a really powerful ability, and could make them a good unit to charge in alongside others. Apparently they'll be going to strength 4 base. I'm not sure whether that's literally based on their profile or inclusive of the Power Sword's +1 strength, and then we'll also get a +1 to wound on the charge now, making them pretty bloodthirsty shock troops. Hopefully they'll be at least in some way living up to the Drukhari Incubi, who became just crazily threatening when their Codex dropped. I guess they still might struggle to be quite as much of a general purpose threat if all their weapons just remain damage 1. The Striking Scorpions are also rumoured to be strength 4 base now, potentially going up to strength 5 with their chainswords, and getting AP -1 and mortals on 6s with their attacks. I'm wondering if that's actually going to be the Scorpion Chainsword rule, or whether that might represent their Mandiblasters. Finally, not much detail on the Phoenix Lords, but getting a 4+ invul across the board for them seems kind of fair enough. It does seem a bit weird when these legendary warriors are easier to take down than a Space Marine captain. Overall, it broadly seems like positive changes, though I must admit Dire Avengers becoming elite I think might diminish their role. Next up we have some rather nice looking changes to the avatar itself, Kayla Menchikane being a little bit more threatening than he is currently. I think if we are getting a big Eldar release, which it really sounds like we are now, the avatar is a kit that's just almost bound to be updated. It's one of the centerpieces for the faction, and despite being an equivalent type figure to things like Greater Demons or Necron Catan, things like Bloodthirsters or Lords of Change just absolutely tower over this thing now, and it certainly feels like a much more classic model from around the turn of the millennium. In any case, these stats certainly seem to fit with the model being significantly bigger. Its profile is a 10-inch move critter with weapon skill and ballistic skill 2+, strength 7 and toughness 8, 14 wounds, 7 attacks, leadership 10 and a 2+ armor save. To further keep him safe, he's got a 4+ invul and halves incoming damage, but loses his feel no pain type rule that he has at the moment. This really would change things up from the current avatar by quite a bit. Currently he's only strength and toughness 6, but he is only 8 wounds, which means that you can't normally target him first as his character protected. He'd be changed from a bit more a screen buffing threat to an enormous walking threat of destruction, as it seems that you can directly target it with heavy weapons, and to be honest he probably better has before he catches up with you in combat. Supposedly he has 2 different attack modes, one at strength 7 that's an anti-horde version. That seems likely to have the double attacks at damage 1 profile that we all know and love, and then his main profile for whenever he's tangling with heavies at a massive strength 14 and damage d6+2. Certainly seems like enough to cut down a lot of the foes of the Eldar in a single round of combat. On top of that, he'll also have a fight and death stratagem, quite nice for such a big model. Hopefully that should ensure that he doesn't just get killed in combat before he gets to strike himself. I kind of wonder whether that might be an updated version of the Avatar Resurgence stratagem, the 3 command point 1 to keep him alive when he dies in combat. For his shooting attack, he basically makes a shot as if he has a melter gun now. Apparently that's going to be changing to some sort of mortal wound beam attack. It doesn't sound like it'd maybe be the most important thing about him, but certainly a nice to have. A few mortal wounds here and there really helps. Finally, his charge reroll aura remains, but that would only apply to core units now. It seems like the avatar might just be a bit more of a simple, straightforward model than 40k, purely focused on being very tough and then very fighty in combat, and doing the Eldritch War God proud. It all sounds fun, and I'm sure that Craftworld players would absolutely love a resculpt of this classic model. Finally, just for a few more things, another one of their rumours was that Rangers would also be going to an Elite's choice rather than troops, and again, like the Dire Avengers, I can't help but think that this isn't likely to be a good thing for them if it's really accurate. I guess it might be trying to make them fit in with other scout type units, maybe things like Orc Commandos, Space Marine Eliminators, or snipers like the Necron Deathmarks, rather than being seen as the main battle line of the army, maybe in a similar sort of move with how they moved the Space Marine Scouts. I'm not necessarily sure that would be the best change for Eldar. Maybe if they just don't want Rangers spammed all the time, it might make a bit more sense just to limit their numbers, maybe something similar to how they did with the Sisters of Battle Novitiate. Again, if this is also accurate though, then it would leave the troop slot really diminished indeed, only with Guardians and Storm Guardians remaining. I guess if the rest of the rumours are true though, and Harlequins and Corsairs are both being rolled into the book, and Corsairs are getting a new release, it could well be possible that either Harlequin troops or Corsair squads might become a generic Craftworld troop slot, and help bulk out the numbers just a little bit. Again though, that might feel just a little bit weird. It doesn't really feel like either of those are particularly core things to the Craftworld army, and I'd argue perhaps less so than Dire Avengers in particular, unless you're fielding an entire force built around either Harlequins or Corsairs. It certainly sounds like that could make a massive difference, exactly what winds up in the Eldar troops. Otherwise, just a couple more bits. Warlocks are apparently becoming elites rather than an HQ choice. That kind of makes sense to me, as they feel like a bit more of a supporting character, as opposed to the main event that should lead a force, and apparently they'll be losing their Destructor limit on Smite and getting access to the full mortal wounds now. Finally, there's rumoured to be a couple of kill team kits coming for the Eldar, specifically one both for Corsairs and for Harlequins, though not at the same time, and one might release several months or even a year after the other. A Corsairs kill team would certainly fit in very well with the leakers' other rumours about the Eldar Codex, with Corsairs being included despite not having any Games Workshop official models, and a slightly strange datasheet that they were talking about with the option to add in specialists such as a Warlock or a Ranger to the unit, despite that seeming a bit of an unusual choice. That would just fit in very well with one of these kill team type boxes, the ones where you can make all sorts of mini characters within the unit. Harlequins as well I do think will be a great choice for a kill team kit. It could be a really nice way to update their main troop unit, which is already kind of fun and flexible, and maybe even adding in some fun and flexible ways to build a troop master, or other specialists within the squad. Apparently that kit will be adding some form of new Harlequin unit to their roster, and that might well not be in the original Eldar Codex, that might be coming as an add-on later, much like the Sisters of Battle Novitiates. Both of those do seem like quite logical releases for Games Workshop, pretty exciting rumours, if really quite vague. So all a little bit speculative, and it's kind of hard to assess how good most of this is without points costs or the supporting things within the Codex, but it does seem to be looking like a pretty all-round power boost for the Craftworld Codex. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and if you'd like to keep up with any more leaks and rumours as they come in, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep up with any Eldar news and review the Codex in full on the channel when we get it. Finally, if you would like to help support Auspex Tactics, I would just like to mention one way in which you can do so, and that's the channel's Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.